Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope Podcast. I'm back with more hip hop news. Of course, as we do on this podcast regularly, had me thinking about, will Outkast release another album? And not an album that is full of old tracks that they put together and make an album, or greatest hits or anything like that, but another project just between them two, that an updated project. Because newly introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, they actually graced the stage for the first time in a long time. We haven't really seen them together a lot, especially not in public. So it just had me thinking about them putting out another project, at least one more, because we haven't seen them again, since 2006 in the Idlewild project, which was the soundtrack for the Idlewild movie. Now, and when you think about the movie, they were not in many scenes together. If you've seen that movie, I think it was maybe a couple scenes that they were in together, and they talked about that in the interview. I believe that year or a couple years after that, they really, you know, really just fell out. I don't know. We don't know why, but unfortunately, it's a sad thing for us hip hop fans because Hip Outcast, I consider the best hip hop group of all time, not just because of sales, but because the artistry that they had, the production at their disposal, just the pedigree and the lyricism that they possessed. And they were so consistent with it, going to the early 90s all the way until, the mid 2000s, what they were able to do. And I believe if they were still out today, they will still be making great music and have the great production and just the great sounds that they had, because we haven't heard a sound like them since. Coming from that Dungeon family tree, what they had um, started their roots with, and everything that came behind it. They created a whole generation and culture of artists that have been influenced by them and their sound, especially what Andre 3000 was able to do with the individuality that he had, and being from the South and being from Atlanta, and the way he dressed and the way he rapped and the way he put things in perspective. Just elite lyricism, especially coming from the South, where they didn't see us as lyrical. They saw us as boom bap, and they saw us as dance music and flash and things like that. He was able to change that perception. And then it was able to be the momentum that he had carried to other artists today. So we definitely need another project from Outkast. Um, and like I said, with all the great producers that Atlanta has, and all the great producers that will be at the Outkast exposal, if they were able to, you know, get together and put out another project, the Metro Boomins of the world that they didn't have before, the ATL Jacob, Jermaine Dupri that's always been there, a Mike Will. They have so many different sounds. And then, they can even go to that pop world like a Jack Antonoff, um, that they can go to for their project, because their sound is so different. And I would love to hear what their sound would sound like today, because, they had a funky sound. They mix funk with rap, which, most artists haven't done today or been able to integrate. It's mostly just been dance and just rap, hip hop type beats. Most people instrument, experimenting with that electronic type sound, that EDM type sound. But uh, what they will be able to do today will be definitely different, especially with the features as well, because there are a lot of a lot of rappers in Atlanta they can work with, whether it be Future, who is a Dungeon Family affiliated, and they're familiar with him as well. JID, who's been very lyrical and very underrated and under the radar as far as lyricism goes, but he's had some great features this year, put out a great project. So I think he would be one of the ones. Of course, Ludacris is still there, Lil Baby, and Jeezy, and they still have other artists, maybe even the Gucci Man that they could work with. So they have a lot of different ways they can go as far as sounds, but it'd be interesting to see if they're able to put out another project and what that would sound like. Um, and just, how differently things sound from '06 all the way to almost 2026. So it'd be 20 years since they've released a project. But we get that project in 2026, which would be amazing for a 20th anniversary of their last album. And they've been doing it over, 35, 40 years. So they have a lot of skin in the game, and they have a lot of people, and they still have a fan base that wants this music as well. I think the sales will be where it needs to be. You don't really need to promote this album. You can just release this album out of the blue one night, and it's gonna do numbers, just because of their hiatus and how what they mean to hip hop. It's similar to what a Lauryn Hill could do, or even to a degree, um, what any top premier artist could do in this game. But I think they have the most skin in the game to do a move like this, especially after 20 years. After 20 years, in hip hop, you're forgotten. But these guys are so great that you can't forget them. So if they release another project, it'll be an easy no brainer for a number one album, especially as far as the charts goes. Um, but they haven't been really active. Big Boy's released 3 solo projects since their last album together. Andre's been on, well, he did a flute album, of course, but he's been on a couple features, but not as active if you would like them to be, especially even though they're in their 50s now. But I believe they still have a lot more to give to hip hop, because hip hop is just not in the place that we thought it would be, especially off the momentum of what those guys were able to do. So tell me what your thoughts about Outkast releasing another project, one more project together. And until next time, I'll see you next time.